So Brian, tell us about your book. Give us an outline, if you wouldn't mind, of what the story is about.
It's about 5 people who, well, 4 of them lose their jobs, 1 keeps their job, but it's on the same day that 180 people are let go from a company. And 5 people end up in a pub together, and they're kind of a random mix, and they get drunk, and they decide to form a film club and to meet in each other's houses every month to watch classic movies that they choose. And over the course of a year, their lives change in tandem with the movies they watch. And they face a lot of challenges, but there's a happy ending.
Is that the only bit of the story you're going to give us, or are you going to give us, you know, a little bit of it more of a teaser?
Well, I mean, there's 5 different characters, and there are 5. You know, there's a very material girl who, you know, is kind of your typical Celtic Tiger girl who has everything: house in Ranelagh, 4x4, you know, designer clothes, a great boyfriend, and she loses everything when she loses her job, and she's the main character. There's a gay guy called Jamie who is about to be have a civil partnership, but he's having an affair with an Iranian guy who is slightly mentally unstable and stalking him. So he's trying to basically work that out and still keep his relationship going. There's a woman who has lost her mother and goes in search of her birth mother. And finds her, but doesn't find what she expected to find. And there's so many. There is a woman who thinks she's going to have loads of time with her children now that she doesn't have any job, but it doesn't turn out quite like that for her. And there is a man who might be a possible love interest for my main character, who also has a possible drink problem.
Did you draw inspiration from anywhere in particular when you were developing your characters?
All characters are composites of different people. There's no particular person that any of them are kind of based on, but some people I know might see elements of themselves in some of the characters, because, you know, that's what you write from. You write from what you know. So yeah, little bits.
How long did it take you to actually go through the process of writing it?
I came up with the concept about 2 years ago on the street, on Ainger Street. I met a woman who had lost her job and formed a book club, and I thought that's a really good idea for a book. And then I thought there's lots of book club books, so I write a film club book because I love film. So that's about 2 years ago. So from that point to publication, it took 2 hard years because I have a full-time job as well. So writing is, you know, it's hard work writing a novel, and so I worked hard for 2 years.
So is it a big change in the process of writing a novel to what you've written in the past?
Okay, well, I've ghostwritten 2 pretty major celebrity autobiographies over the last 3-4 years, and they're both kind of big, thick books. So for me, writing those books made me realise that I could sustain myself for that period of time to write a full book. But when you're ghostwriting, you're writing somebody else's story. The character is there, the story is there. You're basically just being their voice and stringing it together and giving it a structure and making them look like they can write. So, but it was, you know, that was a learning process in developing character and working with character. And so, yeah, when I wrote the first one, which is, you know, quite a thick book, it's a little bit thicker than the book that I've just written. I thought, well, you know, I can write a full book. I had written a novel in the mid-90s, again about a group of people in Dublin, but it was pretty awful, and I would hate to even look at a chapter of it now, and I sent it out to lots of publishers who said no, thank you, and I know why they didn't, but that was a learning experience as well.
Well, your relationship with the publisher in this case, what's it been like?
Well, it's a little bit different because the publisher is the same publisher as who published the 2 ghost rights I did over the last few years, and the editor is the same editor, and that editor is an old friend of mine. So that's how I ended up getting into ghostwriting, because she said, well, I think maybe you could do some ghostwriting. So I pitched the idea for this novel at the launch of the first celebrity autobiography I did, at the launch for that book, to the boss, really, of Hachette Books, and she really liked the concept, and she said, go and write that. But she didn't really say, go and write that and we'll give you a contract. So I did write it, and while I was writing it, I had no idea that it would be published. And that's, for most first-time authors, they haven't a clue whether the book's going to be published or not. And that's a really hard thing, because you're writing into a void, and you don't know if anyone will read it, and you don't even know if it's good enough. You know, you question yourself all the time. But I suppose because she had said write the book, I felt I had a connection to a publisher, which is a rare thing for a first-time author to have. So I felt I'd an in with the publisher, and I wrote a draft of it. I did 2 drafts, and they said, "Yeah, we really like it, but there's a lot of work to be done on it." They came and met me and talked about the work to be done on it, but they didn't at that point say you have a contract. It was only after the third draft that they offered me a 2-book deal. So
you mentioned that there's a 2-book deal, so obviously you have some idea of the next book, or are there many ideas floating around in your head?
No, well, I'm about maybe a third way into the next book. I was writing this morning before I went to work, and it's another group of people. It's not a sequel or anything to this novel, but it has popular culture references. ABBA are a big part of it, and it will be out next April.
Do you take inspiration from other authors in terms of the style and approach that you take to writing?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I read voraciously. I'm a voracious reader, and I have a lot of favourite authors. And but I think Armstead Maupin has been a huge influence on me on this book. And on the previous book that I wrote many years ago, he was a big influence as well, because Tales of the City is one of my favourite books of all time. And in a way, this book is kind of a tale of Dublin City, even though it's couched in different terms. It's very much about people living in a city. It's very much about Dublin. And the characters are various in their sexual orientations, and they're all kind of grappling with things to do, you know, with personal lives. So against the backdrop of the city. So Armstead Maupin will be a big part of this book for me.
Brian, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
I know Brian Finnegan because he interviewed the Nulas 17 years ago for GCN, and we had just formed. We're a comedy musical group, and we were on the road for 7 years, took a hiatus for a decade, and we've just got back together again. But he interviewed us and stayed friends the whole time.
You've also collaborated with him on...
Oh yeah, we did a sitcom proposal together, which was fantastic fun. And it didn't happen, but it was the process that was worth it. He's quite a guy. Yeah. He's one of my favourite people. He's just such a big-hearted, fantastic. But it's like I said, I just launched the book tonight, or did a little speech. He's got this very interesting thing of being absolutely hilarious and warm and funny and making you laugh, and in a heartbeat he can be really deep and serious. It's quite a unique thing, and he's a wonderful listener, and there's just great depth and humour there at the same time. Yeah.
Obviously, in preparation for this launch, you had an opportunity to read the book. Were you surprised by the quality of his writing? No, not at all, because he's an extremely intelligent man, and he has a huge breadth and depth of life experience, so I wasn't surprised by that at all. I was surprised, given that he knows a lot about writing, that he would take on the task of having 5 major characters, with each character with their attendant little peripheral characters, and that's such a huge job to weave all that narrative together. And hats off to him. I mean, what a job, you know. It's a very enjoyable, snappy pace to it. And technically the writing is very clean, crisp, and there's a wonderful, dramatic narrative pace to it. And underneath it all is this Brian's huge big heart there. And this, I think the core idea, like I said, is this idea of the redemptive power of love. And that, you know, like that quote that he has from It's a Wonderful Life, no man is a failure who is friends. Ciara, you edited Brian's book, so can you tell us, when you first got a draft of the book, what were your impressions?
Well, it's probably, I mean, it goes back a couple of years. Brian first approached me, and well, I think he mentioned in passing actually that he was writing a novel, and he told me a bit about the concept, about the film club idea, the Forced Redundancy Film Club idea, and I thought, yeah, that sounds like a very good idea for a book. And so I said to him, well, look, when you have something when you're ready to show something, give me a shout, and I'd love to read it. So so he sent me in a very early some very early chapters, actually, I think was what I first received, which I read, and I immediately saw that it had something and was going to become a good book. And so I engaged them a little bit about it and what sort of things to concentrate on and that sort of stuff. And he continued writing it, and he was kind of feeding it through to me as he was going. So we had a really nice kind of back and forth as it went along. And sometime later, I don't know exactly how long down the line, he finished it, and it looked really good. So.
Did he respond well to the kind of comments that you were making to?
He responded really well. I mean, he was fantastic to work with, actually, because I mean, he's worked for a long time as a journalist, and he has a lot of experience in working life, and so he had absolutely no issues at all with engaging in that kind of constructive, critical process. And in fact, I really can honestly say I haven't met an author in all my time working in publishing who has had a problem with being edited, because generally authors are absolutely delighted to have somebody who wants to engage with them about their work, because as any author will say, it's quite a lonely process in a way. It's a solitary process, writing a book. So by the time an editor gets it and says, yeah, I think it's really good and I'd like to chat to you about it, they're very happy. So it was a very enjoyable process, and it happens that myself and Brian go back a long way as friends, and in a way I would sometimes have a wariness working with friends, because you want to make sure that, you know, it's an entirely separate process to being someone's friend, and you don't want to kind of risk that. But once I started dialoguing with Brian, I knew that wasn't going to be an issue at all, and we were both able to kind of segregate that, you know, and it was great to work together. Yeah, it was good fun too.
Do you think that this would appeal to a particular market out there, or is this a general book for people?
Well, I guess if you look at the book, you'd probably think popular women's fiction, which it definitely is. There's a cross-section of characters. There's 5 characters. There's 3 women, 2 men. One of them is a gay man. So certainly anybody who would sit down and read it will get something out of it. So I never like to be too specific. But yeah, I think there certainly would be a good broad market out there for it. Yeah, anyone who enjoys good read.
Now, the book is being published in paperback, but is it available in any other formats?
Oh yes, the book, it's just come out in trade paperback, and it would also be available as an e-book, so you could download it from Amazon as well, and other outlets like that for your Kindle or your e-reader. Yeah.